Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to unlock a completely fascinating hidden universe that exists right inside you and all around you. We're zooming way in to explore the microscopic city, the biology of cells. Think of this as your ultimate masterclass on the absolute foundational building blocks of life.
Here is our roadmap for today's journey. We'll be covering 1. Discovery and cell theory, 2. Basic anatomy of cells, 3. Exploring cell organelles, 4. Plant versus animal cells, 5. Diversity in cell shapes, and finally, we'll wrap up with some interactive review questions.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Discovery and Cell Theory.
Before we can look through the microscope together, we actually need to zoom way out into history to see how this hidden world was first uncovered. It all starts with an English scientist named Robert Hooke, born back in 1635. In the mid-1600s, Hooke developed a compound microscope using 2 lenses, which gave him much greater magnification than ever before. And this is exactly where history was made. In the late 1600s, he decided to examine a very thin slice of cork under his new invention. What he observed were all these tiny little boxes or compartments that looked remarkably like a honeycomb. Because the cork slice was dead, these compartments were totally empty, and they actually reminded him of small, bare rooms. So he named them cells. That simple observation of dead cork completely revolutionized our understanding of biology, well past his death in 1703.
Okay, let's dive into the next crucial development. Building on Hooke's amazing discovery, 2 scientists named Schleiden and Schwann gave us the cell theory. This theory relies on 3 really straightforward foundational rules. First, all cells develop from pre-existing cells. They don't just magically appear. Second, cells die and are replaced regularly. And third, the life of every single organism out there starts as just a single cell. These 3 rules essentially laid the absolute groundwork for all modern biological science.
Moving right along to Section 2, Basic Anatomy of Cells.
It's time to transition from historical theory into the actual physical architecture of our microscopic city. Now, every city needs a fundamental structure, right? And a cell relies on a few core parts to keep things running. Let's walk through them step by step. Step 1 is the cell membrane. Think of this as the city limits. It's a thin, selectively permeable outer boundary that controls exactly what enters and exits the cell. Pretty important job. Step 2, moving inside, we hit the cytoplasm. This is a jelly-like substance where most of the cell's chemical reactions take place. It's essentially the bustling, active arena of our city. And finally, step 3, right in the middle, we have the nucleus. This is the ultimate control center. It regulates all cellular activities and houses the vital genetic material that gets passed on.
Which brings us to Section 3, Exploring Cell Organelles.
Suspended right there in that cytoplasm jelly are highly specialized structures called organelles. Think of these as the specific factories and workers inside our cellular city. We've got the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, which is this intricate tubule network synthesizing and transporting proteins and fats. We have the Golgi bodies, flattened sacs that modify, package, and secrete useful substances. We also have ribosomes, which are tiny little granules responsible for protein synthesis. Now, what's really fascinating here are the mitochondria. You've probably heard of these. They are the rod-shaped powerhouses of the cell, producing the vital energy required for literally everything the cell does. And then, they're the lysosomes. These contain powerful digestive enzymes to break down worn-out cell parts. In fact, if a cell gets severely damaged, lysosomes can burst to destroy the cell entirely, which has earned them the very dramatic nickname of the suicidal bags.
Let's move into Section 4, Plant versus Animal Cells.
We've looked at the basic parts, but now I invite you to compare how the structural building blocks of flora differ from the building blocks of fauna. Think about the overarching architecture here. The animal cell is somewhat round, a bit squishy and irregular. The plant cell, on the other hand, has a much more rigid, highly geometric structure. Yet, right in the middle of both, they share those central features we just talked about, like the nucleus calling the shots and the mitochondria pumping out energy.
Let's methodically break down exactly why they look so different. Plant cells feature a thick, rigid outer layer made of cellulose called a cell wall. This sits outside the membrane and gives them serious shape and protection against things like strong winds. Which makes perfect sense, right? Plants can't just get up and run inside when the weather gets bad. Plant cells also contain green chloroplasts for photosynthesis, literally making their own food from sunlight. Plus, they have one massive central vacuole for storing water and nutrients. Animal cells, conversely, lack both a cell wall and chloroplasts. And instead of one giant water tower for storage, animal cells contain many much smaller vacuoles. So the key takeaway here is that a plant's inherent need for rigidity and self-made food perfectly dictates its unique cellular anatomy.
Next up, Section 5, Diversity in Cell Shapes.
Let's zoom back out from those little factories for a moment. You see, not all cells look like the standard round or rigid models we just compared. Let's look at how different cells totally adapt their physical forms to perform incredibly diverse jobs in the body. In biology, form always follows function. A cell's shape is never random. It's brilliantly engineered for its specific mission. For instance, human red blood cells are disc-shaped. That gives them the absolute perfect surface area to transport oxygen throughout your body. White blood cells are amoeboid in shape, meaning they can actively alter their form to squeeze right out of capillaries and go fight infections. Nerve cells, they are incredibly long and branched, so they can rapidly conduct electrical impulses from your brain all the way down to your toes. And in plants, guard cells are bean-shaped, so they can perfectly open and close pores. Every single shape serves a vital purpose. And while we're on the topic of variations in size and shape, I want you to consider this number, 170. 170 millimeters is actually the diameter of an ostrich egg. Now, why does that matter for this explainer? Because a bird's egg is essentially a single cell. The ostrich egg is the largest cell among all living organisms. This brilliantly illustrates that while most cells are microscopic and totally invisible to our naked eye, a few have evolved to be incredibly, surprisingly massive.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Interactive Review Questions.
All right, let's shift gears from learning to reviewing, just to properly anchor all this incredible knowledge we built together today. Here is your first open book check. Which of these is not present in the animal cell? Is it A, ribosomes, B, lysosomes, C, cell wall, or D, cell membrane? I'll give you a quick mental beat to lock in your answer.
And the answer is C, the cell wall. Great job if you got that right. As we talked about earlier, this rigid, non-living cellulose structure is totally exclusive to plant cells, giving them the immense structural support they need to stand tall out in nature.
Let's try one more, a practical viva voce question. Imagine you're doing a lab experiment observing human cheek cells or onion peels under a microscope. Why must we add a drop of iodine or methylene blue? Think about how we actually make these invisible microscopic cities visible to the human eye.
The answer is to stain the cells. Because most cells are relatively clear and translucent, adding a stain is an absolute necessity if you want to observe them. It makes the cytoplasmic granules vividly stand out, and it turns that all-important nucleus a distinct dark blue, so we can clearly see the control center actively at work.
And that brings us to the very end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a final thought today. Now that you know about the intricate machinery keeping you alive, the powerhouses, the factories, the control centers, how will you view the natural world differently? The next time you look at a towering tree, a bird in flight, or even just look down at your own hand, remember the microscopic universe functioning tirelessly right beneath the surface. Thank you so much for joining me and learning together today. Keep your curiosity alive, and I will catch you in the next explainer.